Hi Dana.
Hi, Jari.
Hi Riyad.
Hi, Chari.
So we are back together.
Yes.
The Trinity.
Yes.
See what I did there?
You're rubbing in.
But so a lot going on in Sri Lanka, both on the political and the economic front, but
Also in cricket.
also in cricket, yes.
Yes.
So we are planning to do something on cricket, but we'll save that for
Right.
either when we advance through the
Yeah,
group
yeah.
stages or
But I have a little news for you.
Right.
I think on last Thursday, I think President was at a particular cricket club because the team was practicing, and I think he called the team and called the team to have a tea, and I think he gave a little bit of prep talk. Prep talk. Don't know. I mean, I'm just wondering if he actually watched Invictus or something like that.
watch what?
Invictus. The South African
Invictus,
team.
yes.
So,
So local Mandela, is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I mean,
But but I heard that he had gone and spoken. I don't know. I mean, obviously he's not going to give cricket knowledge to them. No, I
Yeah.
think this was more of a the nation is behind you, so
Probably something like that,
just don't embarrass us.
Yes.
Any further kind of vibe. But so whatever they did, whatever he did worked in the first match. We don't know whether it will work in the second match, and then on it
that's how
goes.
it goes.
So we'll save the cricket for later. For today, we actually wanted to talk about energy,
Yeah.
right? Which is ironically what our cricketers also lack.
Yes.
Right? So, energy in terms of electricity generation, power. Ouch, yes. I don't care, honestly. But
Fair enough.
yeah, so in terms of the national economy and power generation in particular, the government has put out a plan which is talking about a 70% renewable energy capacity by 2030. That means of the national energy requirements, 70% will be met through renewables by 2030, and by 2040, 100% or more will be met through renewables.
Yeah.
Which also could mean that we would have export
Yeah.
capability as well,
Yeah.
right? If those targets are met. Firstly, just give me your thoughts on these targets. Are they realistic or are they fanciful, ambitious? What are they?
So shall I start?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the thing is, it's like this. Any target depends on, for example, most of the targets that you take on. Let's say on this is the place where we want to go. A lot of things actually depends on the financial plan. One thing good about the battery tech and the new tech that is coming into energy is the cost is reducing alarmingly. I mean, there's a huge cost reduction every year. One thing is you have to be very thankful to the Chinese because mass production of solar panels, mass production of batteries, mass production of anything related to the industry. So because of that, you see a huge cost reduction every year. Now, for example, if you look at people who have put solar panels, let's say 10 years ago, and the guys who are putting solar panels now, there's a huge reduction in the cost. I'm talking about, by the way, the USD cost, right? Because we know Sri Lanka, we have the case of severe currency depreciation. So I don't want to bring that into this. So I'm just looking at dollar terms, dollar to dollar. Right? So if you look at that, that is the case. So going forward, and other thing is on the cost factor is the infrastructure that goes into renewable production is relatively less. And one thing is you don't have consumption cost, because normally when you do infrastructure, let's say you're putting a coal power plant up, one thing, the coal power plant is very expensive to build. Second, these things you have to feed coal, which is the running expense. Solar plants it's only, for example, if you take a solar plant, I think maintenance is minimum, and there's a particular lifespan, 10 years, 15 years, depends on the tech that you go into.
It's the initial capital that's crazy high.
It's the initial capital cost. So because of that, if you do a cost analysis, actually on the long term it's cheaper. No question about it. The only problem that I see with renewable energy is there are issues on, for example, reliability and on demand. When you need like a surge and all that, then it becomes an issue. right? But apart from that, I think the targets what they are doing, and if they do it in a very systematic way, it's achievable. And one thing you have to forget, because I think now solar production is about, I think it's above 15% now, right? I'm talking about roof solar, not industrial solar. So roof solar is basically government is not investing; it's all private investments, right? So, and it's growing at a massive rate, right? Where more and more people are getting into it because the costs have come down. Because nobody's going to go and take a loan and invest on a roof solar.
And again, for that also we have China to thank. Really.
We have China to thank also, for example, the electric cars that are coming in. So the current mentality is, I'm going to build a roof solar, even on a loan, get a car on a loan, then virtually my running cost or fuel cost for the month is zero. Right? So it's a win-win situation if you look at it that way. But of course, there are other complications that come with it. For example, like if you take solar in particular, where you need to store it when there is no sunlight. So that is additional expense. But then again, the cost of batteries also have come down, because if you look at the last battery storage tender that was given out, it was awarded to a company where they gave it beyond, it was cheaper than what they thought, right? Which the ministry thought. So it was a good deal. So that is number one. Second is on the sustainability side, right? It can be done. I mean, if it's not sustainable, people won't buy it. But the only problem that I think we'll talk more about this, is our distribution network. That needs a major overhaul, because you can't know. For example, there is a case where the ministry tells you on a poor day or on a Sunday, they tell you to shut your solar down. I mean, you are not mandated to do it, but they make a very kind request. Because the reason is there's no consumption. So I think Sri Lanka's demand for consumption also has kind of flattened. The curve has flattened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So before going into that, Riyad, I want to get Dana's view on the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of, now you said technically this is a realistic plan.
Yes.
But I want to get into the numbers also.
Okay. Yeah.
Do we have the dollar reserves that are required to implement this plan and to really, achieve it in the long run? By 2030, 70% renewable, which means not seasonally 70%.
Correct.
70% means 70% constant. It has to be, they haven't specified it, but I think it has to be constant. So it can't be during the monsoon, it goes to 70% and the others, it can't be like that.
Yeah.
So for that, do we have the...
Yeah, so Chari, the simple answer is definitely the government really do not have the resources to bring it to 70% renewable, because these are quite capital intensive investments. Definitely government really doesn't have, and I think they have identified that constraint as well. Because if you look at the new CEB and the new energy bill that they are going to bring out, which we have provided some commentary. First, the CEB bill. Second, there's a new energy policy, which is like a policy document, which we have also provided commentary. And I must comment that the new energy policy is actually, they have done a very good job. I mean, we had suggestions there. We had certain sections that we really did not agree, but it is written in a, it was quite a well thought process.
And a forward thinking one.
And a forward thinking one. So definitely the government really do know. I mean, we can't do it in our reserves and all that. The private investment has to be there. But you made a very interesting observation. The 70%, because already, Chari, there are certain seasons we hit above 70%. Probably, let's see whether we can insert that graph when we run the show.
Yeah.
There are certain periods when you have good rain.
Now what that graph will show you is that in certain times it's well over 70%.
Absolutely.
But for the most part during the year, it's between 40 and 50%.
50%. And that's also mainly coming from hydro.
Yes.
Hydro and solar. So yes, if you are going for 70% above and 20, 40, 100%, it's the demand is, we have to do a lot of investment. But don't forget, we are only considering this energy as at now, because we need to electrify our vehicle fleet. So the demand is growing, and some industries now they will need more and more green energy, because if you look at exports for European Union and all that, they bring more and more green energy requirement. So the demand is going to go up for green energy. So what we are talking about, this 70%, between 40 to 50% is at the current setup, and this is going to go up rapidly.
I mean, the demand will go up.
Demand will go up.
And therefore, what 70% means will be in absolute terms much higher.
Absolutely. And in even the energy policy presentation, we actually did some basic calculations also, like, what's the total electricity in a green energy requirement.
This is the presentation made by
Advocata
to
to
the Energy Ministry.
Energy Ministry.
Right.
Yasmin we should get Yasmin to separately speak about it.
Right.
But even when we
This
look
was
at
this year, last year?
this year, like few weeks ago.
Right.
We really didn't do any, we didn't publish it yet because it's a kind of a closed door conversation.
Right.
We provided the feedback quite openly. So if we have almost about 931,000 cars in Sri Lanka. Let's say if the average mileage is 35 kilometers a day, for us to electrify that entire fleet, we need about 340 gigawatt hours. 340 gigawatt hours. Let's say the three-wheelers, that requires about another 1,000 gigawatt hours. Sorry, I beg your pardon. For two-wheelers, we have about 5 million two-wheelers. If we were to electrify, it requires about 1,000 gigawatt hours for two-wheelers. For three-wheelers, we have about 1.2 million three-wheelers. It requires about another 1,300 gigawatt hours. So altogether, we need about 2,700 gigawatt hours to electrify our vehicle fleet itself. I'm not saying this is not going to happen on like a Sunday evening. This will take a little bit of time. But that's the demand that we are looking at. Because moving forward, for the industries, they require green energy. So definitely the government need to open it for investment. And as Riyad said, it is mainly going to depend on the storage capacity. And again, I'm not an electrical engineer, because there has to be from the little that I know, there has to be you call the load base, right? Like the base power.
Load. So,
the base load.
So normally what happens is like coal, nuclear, or even diesel is basically provides the base load. So the base load is, there's a particular amount. Now, for example, the coal power plant. That's why, we have power cuts when the coal power plant, when it trips, because what happens is the base load is gone. Right? So then they have to kick in all other generators and all that, but which are currently sleeping. They'll have to wake them up and get the base load going through fossil fuels. Now, the issue in Sri Lanka is the base load. Now, in other countries, for example, in France, the base load actually runs on nuclear. France is the only country in the world where 50% of the power generation is nuke. And their nuclear technology is world class. Because France is one country where they never had a nuclear incident. I mean, America, they had the 3 mile or whatever you call it.
Yeah. And Germany, when Angela Merkel came in, they moved to this whole, green energy and all of that.
Yeah.
So they shut down a lot of the nuclear
and some of the coal power plants. So the thing is, you either need, the easiest is either coal or nuclear. So in Sri Lanka, we have been very fortunate in the last 3 years or 4 years, I would say, where the base load has been run coal plus we have been very fortunate with rains. So the hydro has been running lock, stock, barrel. So because of that, we have been very fortunate, right? But the problem is with hydro is suddenly you get a drought, and that happens.
Correct.
Let's say next year, I'm wishing it won't, but if a drought comes, then hydro can't deliver, because then they sanction the water and they prioritize the water for farming. Because you can't take a double hit, because hydro is very important for two things. One thing is providing the base load for the network, the CEB network, and the other one is for farming, because a lot of the farms and all that, they need water to grow.
Yeah.
So when it comes to a drought, they prioritize for growing, so they hold the water back. Then where do we run the base load? So we have Norachule. Norachule is okay to run, but the thing is Norachule enough? So then seasonally, if there's a drought or there's a shortfall, then we have to wake up all these diesels which are sleeping. Right? There are some private companies also who are there. But the problem is, when you wake those guys up, what happens is your expense just goes through the roof, because they charge premium. Right? So that's where the problem is. So currently, with battery tech coming in a big way and solar coming in a big way, you might be able to balance that off. In the next, now we are looking at what's a window? So about a 4-year window.
Yeah.
right? This year is still new.
Yeah,
so
it's
a
4
5-year
years,
window.
And also, Riya, what you said, and like for us to expand on the renewable, you cannot really improve only through generation. You have to also upgrade your connectivity grid.
Yeah.
That requires a massive investment because now the problem is, or Sundays, the reason that you have to keep it off is because your grid really cannot sustain the generation.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. It's like sometimes it can be like putting the cart before the horse, right?
Yeah.
Where you increase the generation without having the infrastructure ready,
Yeah.
and then what's the point of that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because the problem with generation is if you generate, you need to use it somewhere. That's
Yeah.
how electricity works. So if
Exactly.
you don't use it, what happens? Even in your house or anything, your factory, if you are running on a generator and suddenly you don't use it, it trips.
Yeah.
So that's why we have this problem where, there's a tripping issue.
Yeah.
Where it happens with Norachole and all that. And when you trip, then a coal power plant, you can just start it like a diesel.
Yeah.
You have to wait. There's a process you need to go through. So that's a completely different area. I'm not an electrical engineer, right? None of us are. So the thing is, I'm not going to go into the technical detail. I'm just saying from the layman's point of view, how we understand it. But the problem is that. But there is some new tech also coming in. Now, for example, nuclear tech is something that we don't want to touch. We want to touch coal in the north. But then again, I just read the saying that in Japan, they have made a new mini nuclear reactor. Apparently, it's very small, very safe, where it can be put onto a kind of a small container, maybe a 40-foot container box, and you can take it to anywhere and you can run. So even nuclear tech is getting...
And Japan has a phobia for the past 15
Yeah,
years
yeah,
or so
yeah,
since
yeah,
Fukushima.
Yeah, exactly.
They have a phobia, but see, they have that phobia, but it took them only 15 years to sort of, step into that area again and expand.
Since we are talking nuclear, Japan is the only country that got nuked in the history of mankind.
Yeah. Their phobia should be much bigger. Yeah.
Right? So they are the only two countries that got nuked technically, right? So the thing is, even after that, how quickly they rebuilt the country. So Japanese are completely different. It's a different kettle of fish with them.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, a lot of the research and all that's going into Japan, they'll figure a way out. But the thing is, for us, what's safe is because nuclear in Sri Lanka, I think even for the government, it's not taken as an option.
Correct.
Yeah, because they are scared because something goes wrong and then it's going to be.
I think that's a bridge too far right now in terms of the, public acceptance and all of that, because even getting public endorsement for wind power has been difficult, right?
Yeah.
So then nuclear is a whole different kettle of fish.
Correct.
But coming back to solar, right? And because we are focusing on that heavily, another problem with solar is also land, right?
Yeah.
So Sri Lanka being such a small country now, everybody talks about, okay, so the world's renewable champion is hands down China. There's not even competition.
But
Okay.
actually on solar, per capita,
No, I'm not talking per capita. Yeah.
per capita Sri Lanka is actually above China.
Yeah. Per capita, when you compare China and India with any other country, it's going to look bad.
No. What I'm saying is for example,
You mean the per capita consumption of green energy?
yeah, production of green
solar.
energy, Sri Lanka is actually above China per capita.
Production of green energy.
Yeah, because the reason is we have so much as roof solar.
Yeah, but also
It's a crazy
Yeah,
amount.
given the Chinese, also the population.
Yeah.
No. But, what I'm
Anything
saying-
per capita is going to look
No,
like that.
Chari, but the thing is, you have to compare apples with apples. No, if
Yeah,
you look at
exactly.
if you check the investment that goes in for generating let's say per kilowatt on roof energy, roof solar energy, China is hands down much cheaper than Sri Lanka because it's more affordable there. Because in Sri Lanka, you have to bring it down from China, you have to buy it from China, bring it down here, pay taxes, pay the local things and all that, and then put it up. So what I'm saying is, on the investment side, Sri Lankans have been very progressive in that way.
Fair enough. But what I'm saying is, you compare per capita Sri Lanka with China or India
Yeah,
in
on size,
anything, right? It's not going to look good.
And also maybe because of the other reason is China and India, the geographic location, because we are near to the equator, and in China, while the landmass, so as India,
we have a lot of
certainly-
sunshine here.
We have a lot
That's
of
a
sunshine.
very
throughout
important
the
point.
year.
Yeah. They have snow.
They have
The closest we've come to snow, I think, was recently when Doreli went to 3 degrees.
So-
But
And that was a big scene here.
that was a big scene. Yeah,
But you were coming to the
I was hoping for 0 and then beyond.
But you were coming to the land issue.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Which is a big
land
issue.
issue. Okay. So then there are two options. No, three options. So then there's ground-based solar, which is what is popular. Everybody
Yeah.
knows. Which is what a lot of countries have put in deserts. Okay. Then you have this mini, generation from the rooftop solar,
Solar, yeah.
and then you have hydro-based.
Yeah.
Right, water-based. In Sri Lanka, I think water-based is part of the mix.
Yeah.
Okay, let's leave out the rooftop for a bit and tell me, and I think you guys have done some work on land availability when it comes to agriculture.
Yeah.
So this purpose is going to be at odds with the agricultural purpose also.
Correct.
Because where does the land come from? It's a small 65,000 square kilometer area. So, okay, how do we solve the land problem?
Yeah, this is Chari, completely a new can of worms because land issue. Even I will tell you a personal story. In fact, you remember there was a competitive bidding. Earlier, there wasn't a competitive bidding process for the solar projects, and then there was a competitive bidding process brought in, and then they were going to again reverse. In fact, I myself and Murtaza, we met the then energy minister, and we said like, look, saying that the importance of the competitive bidding process, and the reason we brought out was also and then the minister's concern was, look, you can bring the competitive bidding process, but the land issue is a mess. So that's why they said, I can't go for competitive bidding. I am prioritizing side of this rooftop solar and whatever that can be done, because you cannot. His concern was people are coming and bidding at very low rates for solar projects, and then they come and say that I cannot find the land. Right? He said, I cannot stop this process for land issues. Right? So our suggestion was, okay, you solve the land problem because there's a genuine problem, because then you can allow the markets to work. But again, solving this land issue is not an easy problem, because 80% of the land is owned by the government, and as we have spoken, it's not digitized, and our deed system is a complete mess. So it's very difficult, because also the land owned by like so many authorities, like there's one land which is under archaeological, there's one land under the environment conservation, so there's a lot of, and some are under religious institutions. Quite a messy. You really cannot do this heavy investment.
And Dhananath, sorry for interrupting. For example, Cashew Corporation is one of the biggest landowners.
And then
Railway Corporation is another big
Exactly.
landowner.
And
Railway,
then-
no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like, even if you find like an obscure land
Yeah.
to get the grid connectivity,
Yeah.
then you have to get approval from so many other authorities, like the provincial council, there's this, again, because your grid may be coming from somewhere which is falling under multiple institutions. So it has been a kind of a mess. It's very difficult. And the challenge is, Sari, since you asked, this is responding to the first question, there's this concept called wheeling. No? There's concept called electricity wheeling. Wheeling is, you need, let's say you have a land in Kandy. I have a IT workstation in Colombo. I need not to go through the CEB or whoever the government authority. You have a land, you say, Dana, I will put up solar in my land. Right? It's no one's business. I have my bare land.
Meaning I own the land.
I own the land,
Okay.
exactly. And you put the solar thing. And I come to an agreement directly with you at what rate that I am buying electricity from you. There's nothing to be done with CEB. But the problem is, how are we going to transmit? Transmission is, you can, you basically connect it to the grid, and both of us pay a transmission fee to whoever the transmitter. Agreement is between you and I. The advantage, let's say I do software or something, and let's say I have an advantage working with the European Union, saying, okay, my entire IT operation is based on green energy. And this is the agreement. And I can bid with you with a competitive rate, saying, look, Chari, I can get a better rate, I can win this business if you sell the electricity at this rate. And for you, it's advantageous because your land has nothing to do now, because you are based in Colombo, nobody's there, you just need to mount up solar and just come to an agreement.
Yeah.
So, and it can be advantageous because for you, I can offer a better rate because I may be earning in euros. So this wheeling concept is a direct function of the availability of land, because a lot of underutilized land can be converted into whatever solar or wind or whatever the option, if you have that wheeling option. But wheeling can come only when there's grid upgrade. And also when you provide the land, sort the land issues is where you can basically, work this around. So actually in the new energy policy, credit to the government, that's wheeling option has been considered.
Right, okay.
So in the new electricity,
This is the first time.
it's the first time. I mean, I'm not sure it's the first time, but it has been there even in the previous act. So that's why we were saying that even for grid expansion, we need to have the private investors involved, because this grid expansion is quite needed to wheeling private, because not only you now send, like there are so many people going, the electricity grid and whatever that, I don't know, like the functionality has to be compatible with that. So yes, land issue is critical. That's why we say it's a factor market reform that you need, because electricity is going to change our destiny when it comes to, on exports and everything, because now the exports are no longer about the prices and quality. They ask for about the renewable energy or the green energy component. For that we have to prepare, not only for manufacturing, also for services, IT hubs, and everyone talks about making Sri Lanka like what do you call this, artificial intelligence and all that, which are quite energy intensive. You have to have a lot of green energy. So land, this grid expansion, these all are now combined if you are looking for exports. And importantly, we have been speaking about these merchandise exports. So one type of merchandise exports is actually electricity, because electricity falls under a merchandise export. Because merchandise export doesn't really mean like, it's like, it's like a good, that something tangible. Because as long as you can measure the unit, it falls under merchandise export. So actually, one source of exports could be electricity. But for that, that's another can of worms that you have to connect the grid with India and the ability to export and all that. So this is quite a critical note that we are discussing today, because it's connected to exports, it's connected with land, it's connected with trade and everything.
Yeah, if it goes to plan by 2040, 45, we should be exporting then.
Correct.
Right.
So,
but I feel like there are a lot of issues. I feel like this is one of those plans that's going to be delayed by 5 years. I hope I'm wrong. Okay? But
no, one thing, Chari, I'll tell you something. One thing, even though the government does anything, now, for example, if you look at this whole segment of roof solar, that was done despite by the private sector. No? Private means actually private individuals. Right? So, that is a sector that is just keep on growing. Because I remember one energy professional, there was a forum which I went about 2 months ago. He said that the growth what they expected and what actually happened, I think it was either 3x or 4x. So so that is growing, and now especially with electric cars coming big into the market, more people are considering it. It's practical. I mean, people go with what's the best deal for themselves. So I think the private investments, for example, things like roof solar. Another thing is roof solar is very efficient way of using land, because you're building on existing infrastructure. Right? And the infrastructure, the solar, what is done, if you look at the electrical circuit system on the grid, it's basically, those are the same people who consume it.
But I'm wondering, Riyad, whether, okay, so we get a substantial number of roofs.
No, Chari, I know where you're trying to go. But the thing is, if you look at the roof solar, guy who already has roof solar, what's his next step? Next step is going to be something like the Tesla, what do you call that wall, the battery wall, for example, Tesla, they made a battery storage system. Right? It's not coming to my mind at this moment, right? So that's going to be their next system, where you can store your own energy inside your house. It's called a wall battery or something like that. Tesla made it, right? So obviously now what I hear is the Chinese are also doing it. So the price of that will come down, because the price of battery tech is coming down. So if you look at battery storage, we are only looking at industrial storage. When we initially looked at solar generation, we only looked at industrial generation. But nobody's thinking about, for example, let's say some guy, he has a roof solar, he has already put it in, it's going into the national grid. He might actually put I think it's called a power wall. Right, where it basically there's a huge battery, there's a battery wall that's attached to the house. So whatever he's generating, it's going into the battery, and whatever excess is only going to the grid. Which means, he's, even if there's a blackout, he is not dependent on the grid. So that is going to be the next step, I feel, when it comes to battery tech, where people will start putting these fancy battery systems into their house, where they will be having. So that's what I'm saying. So we are currently only. I think currently, we are not looking at the complete market dynamics, how things are changing.
No, I like the idea of this democratizing energy generation like that, where everybody is in their own way self-sufficient in energy. I mean, that's a radical vision.
Yeah.
But if we can get somewhere close to that,
I think we are moving there, Charya. I mean, whether we like it or not,
It's
because
happening.
I think the importance of having your connectivity to the main grid is, in case of a power cut or something during night, if you really cannot have the storage, you get connectivity. But with improving more and more battery power, a lot of people are going to basically, generate unless there's like a massive climate change happening and it snows and all that, then we will really lose our sunlight and all that.
That won't happen.
Otherwise people will having solar
No,
panel.
what happens since you brought up climate change? What people are? I saw President Trump recently. America had this cyclone storm, and it was a really bad one, even by their standards. And then Trump is sending a message out asking what happened to global warming. Okay. Now, what happens with global warming is not exactly the literal meaning of global warming. Global warming, climate change is about how everything is taken to an extreme. So you have worse droughts and you have worse cyclones and storms. So in Sri Lanka, while we will have worse rain and rainy seasons, the droughts will also give out and it will longer also.
Correct.
So that way, I think in terms of solar generation,
So that's the thing, Charlie. What I said is, for example, let's say you got a prolonged down. No, the problem is the storage. No, so let's say if each individual they get these power walls or whatever, but Tesla has developed. Obviously, Chinese knockoff version will come if you like it or not. That's how it works. So when that comes, you're power dependent. Because you're power independent, because the reason is, even if there is a power cut, you still have power into your house, and in the morning the solar will charge your batteries. So one good thing that it does is it actually puts the pressure down. If people go to the next stage of getting their own battery system into their house, it takes the it takes the strain and the stress out of the grid. Because Sri Lankan grid, to update it, I think, how much it was about 5 billion.
Multiple numbers through, no?
About
8,
4 to 8.
Say 5, 8, 11,
different numbers come up. But
it's expensive amount.
it's a big amount. It's not a Tankala Karla shape, right?
Correct.
So it's a big amount, right? So that, if it's going into where we can at least extend or prolong or at least we can do minimum updates just to keep the grid alive, then it's a big thing. Because then what happens is, what one electrical engineer, what he said is, that's going to bring the strain down. Because the network can't take. Now, for example, one of the states in the world, if you take worldwide, that uses a lot of electrical vehicles is actually California. What they're saying is, if California is 100%, people are going to go on electric vehicles, it's going to basically fry the network. But in the US, it's not happening. Is people are having these Tesla walls and all that in their house. So whatever goes, they charge it, and the car is charged off the solar battery, and through the solar battery which is installed in the house, which charges in return, powers the house and charges the car. So then basically what happens is they become independent and not dependent on the system, which is a good thing. But only thing is, I think some time back, someone told me that the CEB didn't want people to have battery systems in their houses and all that. For that reason, I don't know the technical reason. I mean, sometimes it might be a social reason also, because the significance,
I was
CEB.
I wanted to save the controversial element for last.
Best for last
or worst for last. What is CEB's role in this renewable energy plan? Because for the longest time, I have felt, and a lot of people have also, I think, that they are standing in the way. Okay. There is talk of a diesel mafia. There is talk of whatever mafia, other mafia. Your thoughts obviously representing Advocata, maybe. But what are your thoughts? What are Advocata's thoughts on the CEB's role in this? And you don't necessarily have to go into words like mafia, but just, is there an anti-competitive practices going on?
Absolutely.
Yes.
There was,
I mean, it's a monopoly,
It's a monopoly, so that's obviously anti-competitive. And this is not the
No, when I say anti-competitive, I'm talking internally also. Yes, it's a monopoly, but in terms of product diversification also.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely, because because we saw the slowness on the moving to the renewable side on one side. Renewable is, I'm not saying renewable. The energy prices haven't been competitive now because renewable or whatever what you're looking at is generating the energy in the quality cheapest form of way is what you're doing it.
Correct.
So there has been a lot of blockages, and then there's no competitive process for a lot of projects on one side. And the other thing is, I think in Sri Lanka, the people who have made money in Sri Lanka, there are two ways that they have made money. One is either you sell something at an exorbitant rate to the government, which is not worth that amount, or you're buying something from the government at a dirt cheap rate compared to the real value, right? So this electricity is
of course, we don't mean everybody, but generally. Okay,
absolutely.
yeah.
And energy has been one main area that how people have been making money, and no offense to that. People have to make money, and that's what Advocata stands for. Create wealth, but not on the anti-competitive nature. And CEB, what they did is overall, keeping everything aside, they basically made it less competitive overall. Didn't open up. I'll try to explain it, Chari, on the other side. With taking CPC as an example. Now, Petroleum Corporation. Now, let's say we are talking about moving to 100% renewable energy in 10 years time, 10-15 years time.
Less than 15, 14 now.
We are talking about more and more electrical vehicles coming in. So what is going to happen for these filling stations running under CPC? Are they going to come and put also electricity? Because, people will not go and pump fuel from the, including the private players who are in the market. There will be a hybrid component that you need fuel, but of course, the more and more electrifying it, you need to bring that component down, right? So you're going to say that, okay, we need CPC to also coming and having charging stations. Does it make sense? Same thing is going to happen for CEB. So they are trying to be relevant in this context. So that's why I feel they're trying to keep a monopoly, because their entire business model is based on the monopolistic nature that they are in. But you really cannot keep it for a long time. After 100 years or 200 years, this is going to go away. That's the reality, because when the markets work. So there has been a lot of anti-competitive, when it comes to coal, when it comes to purchasing electricity, when it comes to selling, there has been so much of stuff. But again, there are also issues on their side as well. It's not like always there have been not issues. For the payments and all that, I understand there have been a lot of issues. Till recently, a lot of renewables guys haven't been paid for I think for 18 months or something. How can you run a business when you're not paid for 18 months? So there has been a lot of delays. So definitely this has to reform. I think the unbundling process and all that is in the process to recover that. So definitely CEB, I think no longer they are CEB now. Because now there will be multiple institutions now with the new act. So there's no single CEB. There's Genco, there's Disco. Likewise, there are
generation, distribution.
Exactly.
So just to take on what Dana said, now the CEB, technically if they like it or not, when people start putting battery storages into their houses, right? What's going to happen is actually the monopoly status of the CEB starts to come down. Because the reason is, it's not a company that's doing it. You're putting individually. You're being independent of the CEB much as possible. Which means CEB significant comes down. Right? And the battery tech is something that is improving day by day. Because there are massive companies. For example, Tesla, then BYD. Because BYD actually started as a battery company. Then they turned into a car company. Right? Tesla, then if you take Toshiba in Japan. Right, then some of the universities like University of Tokyo, then Dresden. So there are some big universities and big companies which are day in, day out, they're actually experimenting, doing research how to improve battery tech.
Correct.
Right? So battery tech is going to be stay there if you like it or not. Only problem I see in battery tech is there are particular materials and minerals that have to be heavily mined. For example, what comes to my mind is
Cobalt,
cobalt,
lithium.
zinc,
Lithium.
lithium. Those things have to be mined. And mining that is one thing. It's a little bit dangerous because these are all heavy metals. So other side I see of battery tech is, okay, these batteries after a while you have to basically you have to replace them. Then what do you do with the existing batteries that are already used? Right? They have to be recycled. So I think the next big jump that's going to come is the recycle, how they are going to recycle the raw materials of the batteries, how the batteries are going to be recycled. I think that's going to be the next big industry. Right? So normally in humanity they find a solution at some point. Right? People say, oh no, this is the end of the world. No, it's not going to be. It's going to be different because already some people are saying there's more new tech that's going to come, which is less dependent on particular materials, right? So that is, we have to wait and see. But this renewable thing, I think it's an ongoing thing. I think there's no stopping it. If people think that fossil fuels are going to rule,
it's just a matter of time.
Yeah,
I just hope the time is sooner rather than later.
And just sorry for interrupting. Another really good thing about this with the EVs, with the tech is even the vehicles which were running fossil fuel. Now the fossil fuel companies who they are called internal combustion engines, always called as ICE. Okay, but ICE in Sri Lanka has many meanings.
Exactly.
In the US also now.
Yeah, US also now.
Right? So ICE engines, internal combustion engines, they are making now even companies like Toyota, especially I think Toyota and Mercedes and BMW and all that, they are also investing very heavy to make fossil fuels even more efficient. So because end of the day, how a tech becomes successful or not is, it's basically on your pocket. People will always go for something that's cheaper on the long run. Cheaper, efficient and more convenient. So if let's say BMW, Mercedes or Toyota or can be any car company, they make something where you put a full tank of diesel or whatever, because there's a lot of research going into diesel now, right?
Yeah.
Diesel type, because diesel, energy density of diesel is more than petrol. Right, so there's a lot of research that's going in. I think Mercedes is leading the way, and right, I think so. But yeah, so what's going to happen is if that gets to a point where you pump a full tank and you can do 3,000 miles, then that becomes he becomes a new boss in town.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So this is an ongoing thing. We can't say this is going to be but no matter what happens, renewable energy is
here to stay and here to grow.
Yeah, here to grow. And renewable energy is going to push the the fossil fuels also to become more efficient, to become cheaper, to produce and more environmentally friendly.
So Jari, two quick points.
Yeah.
One is if you recall on I'll come to Riyad's point on mining, but before that on the CEB, the question you asked about the monopoly. Do you recall? Have you ever experienced a situation that your electricity is being disconnected because you haven't paid the bill? Earlier, if you recall, there's a separate van comes from the CEB.
Yeah, that's a red notice van.
Red notice, and if you forgot, they basically come and there's some cabling thing that they do, right?
Go it and go,
I remember long time ago, my mother has I think it was in the middle of a cricket match.
Right.
And they came and disconnected the electricity of our house. So shameful and so painful. Right? So now, it's no longer the case. I don't know. In my area, it's a LECO. So you get an SMS alert, to pay it. And it's all through a software system. They disconnect it through software. They reconnect it through software. Right? Yeah. And it's just a matter of payment. And I realized, very recently we had an incident of one of the rented properties. This disconnection, the moment that you transfer money, you have to call and tell them that you disconnected, and they check and they connect it on the computer. But the problem that I found out was, depending on the banks now, it can take time. For an example, when you transfer money from bank X, their banking system, they said you go to the supermarket and deposit,
it's immediate.
It's immediate, right? So I think there's a separate, but things have changed drastically.
Yeah.
Right? On connection. Now imagine how many jobs that they have been like cut down.
Yeah.
Because earlier like someone coming in a vehicle and there's like also, I mean disconnecting electricity is a massive issue, no? Like your kids are studying or something. There's be, severe conflict between the two parties.
But Dana, sorry to be singing, but the real story is more than the disconnection is the guy who comes every month to read.
Absolutely.
It's a defunct job.
Now that's no longer there. On the LECO areas, I think it's coming as That's number one.
They put digital meters, I
so
think.
you understand the monopoly and how things have changed, but it's changed in a monopolistic environment to an extent. If you bring more technology and more people, OD is good, right? It drastically changed. Number one. Number two, what Riyad said, I read a Harvard study. Now, don't get too impressed that I know about, because I'm just spitting out what I read on a Harvard study. On this renewable, what Riyad said was right, because it is more on the mining side. What they have estimated from 2021 to 2040, if I remember right, the mining has to increase by about 3 to 7 times if you are serious about this renewable energy transmission, because it's all about...
You mean globally?
Globally.
Yeah.
Globally.
But for me, I mean, I'm thinking for Sri Lanka, is that a big problem? Because we'll anyway be importing it from China.
No, but the cost the thing is the cost will go up because the thing is the global mining is controlled by, there are only about 10 countries. So I'll just go through the list. So it's, I think China is one, Congo is one, Indonesia, South Africa, Australia, Russia, and there are about another 3 countries. Yeah. So basically all the mining happens for, not one material, all the material happens between those countries. So the problem is, there isn't like an unlimited supply of it, right? And as Dana said, the cost of mining the more you dig, the cost just keeps going up like nothing.
Correct. And also the energy that is required for mining. That's the second thing. So no, this is the economic implication. You are right. Like we are definitely going to import that. Yeah. But the cost of it may change, and that's number one. Number two is what they say is okay. There are 3 things that we can do when it comes to the green energy. One is there's a process of decarbonizing. So the products that is required for decarbonizing, whether we are going to join that supply chain, that is producing solar, producing battery, or like providing parts and components for these battery technology and all that. That's one area which I don't see, since we don't have mining, whether we can join. That's a different thing. Second thing is converting grey products to green products. For an example, steel. Steel is quite energy intensive, which a lot of we had to use a lot of non-green energy. And having steel from a green technology versus non-green are completely 2 different things. It's like a vehicle. Vehicle moves, the functionality of the vehicle is the same. You have the same steering wheel, you have the same signal lights, you have the same air condition, but from moving the vehicle from an ICE engine to a green engine are completely 2 different technologies. But the end user feels pretty much the same. I mean, same in the sense
you're going from point A to B.
Exactly, you're going from point A to B. But the technology has changed. So one option is now when this technology changed from so many other industries, from steel to from aluminium to from vehicles to everything, the technology is completely drastically changing. And the green energy, the challenge is, while people think it's cheap, actually it is not cheap given the factors like based on the storage. Of course, as Riyad said, it's drastically coming down. But the transportation of green energy is the tricky thing. So a lot of manufacturing has to be relocated to where the green energy is being produced. Right? So if we are serious about with the solar on Mana and the wind power on Mana and all that, there is a potential to attract those industries, because you have to have the industries closer to where the green energy is produced, because transportation is difficult. So that thing is there. And third is the know-how, because to do that, it's like, if you look at the garage guys where we go to repair the engines and all that, now they are going to drastically change, right? Because no longer the ICE engines may come for repair. It's the batteries, right? So likewise, there has to be a lot of know-how has to come in to basically transfer to the green energy. So those are the 3 economic indicators that we have to look at, because I don't think we can go in the first one. It has to be the second one To do that, Chari, the reforms that we spoke about at the policy level.
Just remind so that our viewers don't get confused what we mean by the first one is
First one is
decarbonization.
the
Decarbonization.
So connecting to the decarbonizing products.
Yeah.
That is producing solar, battery and all that.
Yeah. Second is
Third one is moving the grey products to green products.
that's the second one, no?
That's the second one.
Yes.
The third one is export of the know-how.
Right.
So those are the three areas that we have to look at on a global scale.
Yeah.
So that's where I think where our real bids are going to be. If we are serious about it.
And there's another little thing on transport because there was a experiment done by a popular YouTube 4-wheel drive channel in Australia where they bought 3 in Australia they call pickups utes, right? A ute, right? So they bought 3 pickups and they basically did a towing to see how much. So I think one was BYD and there were another two brands that were there. So when they did the experiment and they had a old Toyota pickup or something diesel going with them. So ultimately when they did the calculation to see which has been the most, so these are hybrids, diesel, fuel plus battery, where you can charge like the plug-in hybrids. So to see the old diesel actually did better on fuel consumption, right? So that's what I'm saying, because this a lot of people have currently kind of discounted that, because the technology on diesel is actually it's going to give EVs a real run for its money, right? Because diesel technology is like improving massively, and generally the Europeans, particularly the Germans, right, and the Japanese, generally they are pretty good at this diesel game, where the Americans are not that good, because American diesels are mostly big trucks, like Kenworths and all that, Max and Kenworths. But apart from that, the small diesel engine of getting very high mileage. For example, if you take even a German vehicle from 2000, normally the vehicle will do about 50 miles per gallon, because it's there.
But that environmental factor.
No. So the new diesels are going through new kind of filters, and there's a filtration process, and plus they are also getting into a hybrid tech. So going forward, diesel is an area that on the fossil fuel, I think that's one area which probably might have some hope. And probably the other one is what Toyota is working on is on what the hell you call that? Hydrogen.
Okay. Green
That's
hydrogen.
Okay. So hydrogen is green. So Toyota is investing a lot in hydrogen, and what they're saying is there was a program. What they said is some of the Japanese and German companies, I think they're like collaborating also, that they are going to put new generation of ICE that's going to come out. Right, internal combustion engines that are going to come out with a different tech. They are saying, so it's end of the day, it's a number of kilojoules or whatever energy you can extract from that 1 liter. So what they're saying is it's going to be a monumental jump. So that's the story. So this game is an ongoing game. Nobody can say he's going to win, but no question about it when it comes to normal household and transportation and all that. Renewables they are here to stay. There's no question.
The future is renewable.
Okay, absolutely.
So
Wait,
we are
can I are we
out of time unless you want to make a quick point.
No, 2 quick points, Chari. One is now the importance of it is because we have been all having grand plans on export diversification, export industry. Now this is a critical component on exports, because and foreign direct investment. No investor will come if we cannot provide the green energy, because they really cannot export to those markets. Number one. Number two is on your point on the climate change, because our air conditioning penetration is very low compared to the region. Because now, of course, we have rain, but of course, we have very high temperature during the drought period. So that means
we are heading into a very warm period now.
Absolutely. So we have to have more and more air conditioned units to bring the temperature down. So that will also add more demand on the energy front during the daytime. So we have to keep all that in mind when we are thinking about this energy transmission, and the market forces are actually in operation in this process.
Right, great. So we also have a message, no, Dana?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
But we'll make it quick
I'll be
today.
Very short. You can become an Advocata Insider. It's just 12,000 rupees a year, 1,000 rupees a month. The content that we provide like this is completely free of charge, and that's thanks to Advocata Insiders. What we try to do is to create a community who stand for reforms, and we are an independent think tank. So to maintain our independence, you can support us as becoming an Advocata Insider. It's just 1,000 rupees a month. So become an insider.
All right, great. So very, very interesting and diverse conversation we had today. Even though it was all energy is a huge area, right?
It's a huge thing.
So thank you, Riyad. Thank you, Dana,
Thanks,
as
Charindra.
always. Lovely having you guys, and thanks for the insightful, conversation. We will see you back, or I will see you next week. And thank you to everyone for listening. Do send in your feedback, good or bad. We are, receptive. We want to hear what you think, and that will help us go on the same path or improve. Okay, so thank you.